Hello, 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 I'm Chase Carrington. Welcome to the Chase Carrington Show. And today, I just want to talk about a trip I went on recently. Last week, I went on a really fun trip to New Jersey, New York. So, I went to New York, to the Javits Center, to attend the PhotoPlus Expo. It was a lot of fun. So many exhibitors and camera companies that so far I've only really heard about online or through the internet. I got to get hands-on with so many different cameras and camera accessories. It was just awesome. Really, really awesome. But through it all, I did a lot more than that, as well as some thinking. And what really came through to me were some lessons about change. Now, you'll hear a lot about change, because it's just something that happens. It's just something that happens as a part of life. But I think I have a few examples from my trip that really cement the idea that change happens. And it continues to happen. Well, as you enjoy this beautiful fall backdrop, let me tell you what I learned about change in New York. Well, the first thing is, of course, relating to the cameras. Because, as I said, I was surrounded just by camera technology and so many amazing new cameras. Many cameras were just released a few months ago or less than a month ago, especially a lot of the new mirrorless cameras coming out. So I really got to enjoy realizing that just technology moves so quickly and how quickly technology continues to move. It was literally, if you looked this summer, if you looked at the camera landscape, or even early spring, you'd see things were very, very different. The leaders were different. The competition was different. Just the landscape has changed so quickly. And you realize this when you see a lot of mirrorless cameras, especially full-frame mirrorless or professional level mirrorless coming out, and they have unique features, and they continue to innovate in a new direction that, I'm telling you, a lot of people didn't see. I mean, there are few who predicted some of these moves. But still, we see a lot of changes in technology. If you look at Apple just made an announcement, and I missed it on the 31st or 30th, and technology changes and innovation changes, and this is a thing that changes a lot. But in perspective, what does that mean for us as Christians? Well, the world will change around us, but that means that we have to stay solid in certain areas. We need to stay solid on our beliefs and on our principles. But at the same time, we need to realize that the world around us is changing. And there are many, many things that we can change as Christians without compromising and without jeopardizing our faith. And I think one of the big things we can do is definitely embrace new technologies or use new mediums to promote God and His gospel. So the second thing that I realized going to New York, I didn't get too much time for sightseeing. I didn't get to go to Empire State Building or anything. I just kind of saw it from a distance. But I was able to make it to Times Square. And that was rather interesting. So many billboards, so much activity, so many different people from different places. As my dad pointed out, probably the majority of the people were from out of state or even out of the country. There were quite a few European accents all over the place, and I'm sure other accents as well. So it was rather interesting. But one thing I find kind of interesting about Times Square is the billboards. So many of those billboards, especially those promoting current things like movies, music, TV shows, Broadway shows, they change so quickly. Sometimes they're hot, sometimes they're not. I think in the end, that really means that we need to be wise about what we change and what we put our faith in and what we depend on. While, as I said, change sometimes is welcome and necessary, even a welcome and necessary change may not remain permanent. There's so many things that are changing around us that will be undone or changed eventually. There's so many technologies that were cool a few years ago, or even a summer ago, that just aren't fashionable or aren't relevant today. Now, another fascinating thing about Times Square was just how it's just, you're bombarded with so many kind of distractions, so many billboards at once. And I think it's sometimes, again, we need to use our wisdom to take a look and see, okay, we need to change this. But these other things, people are saying, oh, that needs to be changed. Like, oh, the pews need to be changed. Now, I'm not saying if your pews need to be changed, don't change them. I actually like a nice, comfortable church pew. But sometimes you need to look at, say, okay, which do we need to be changed? How our greeters are not greeting people properly, or should we change, the color of the church? We need to use our wisdom to gauge which change is more important and not be distracted by so many new things going on. Like, you see a bit of a trend in churches, which is just natural wood. It's not a bad thing. I actually rather like the look in some settings, but is that more important than making sure that your greeters know how to greet people with a spirit of kindness? You just gotta weigh things. And the last thing that I find kind of interesting and fascinating, and that is that how people change. And sometimes when you look back on yourself just a few years back or a few months back, you'll see how you did something then that you won't do now. And this was kind of a personal thing for me. Me and my dad were talking, and we were discussing how we, and especially my dad, was saying that he might have done or said things that made sense in the moment when he did them. Once he looks back on them, he realizes that maybe it was an immature move. I do this all too often myself. And it was an interesting thing to think about, that people do change. Sometimes when you see someone who you used to know that's different than you remember, which changed, you or the person? Something I'll keep in mind. Altogether, this is just a few thoughts on change. I'm also going to show a few interesting clips and photos from the event, either at the beginning of this or at the end. I don't know which I'll do. I'll make it up later. Fortunately, I did take some test footage with different cameras, test photos with different cameras, but it's kind of hard to figure out which is which sometimes, so I may not exactly remember. So if I put down the camera, put a little question mark next to the camera that I used, and I'll just, if I'm not sure exactly what it was, but I think I remember what it was. Because actually, here's a tip if you ever go to an expo like this: bring your own SD card. Now, someone at the conference told me this, so I wasn't well prepared for this, or bring a ton actually. And then you can stick them in the other cameras, take test shots, then take them home and mess with them and pixel peep, which is the term of just zooming in and looking at all the fine details. You can do all that stuff, and you can figure out what's going on, and do you want that camera, or is it worth your time? So that's my tip there, but I hope you enjoy the footage and a few photos I took also in New York. Thank you so much. Please subscribe, and also keep me in your prayers, and I will do the same to you. I'm Chase Carrington. God bless, and good night.